Are you keeping track of the payments?
Yeah, inshallah. Tomorrow we'll update.
Are you gonna do that today? Where's this step?
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا مولانا رسول الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن سيدنا مولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم. وبعد. All right, guys, doing today? inshallah, this guy looks like a professor. Inshallah, very nice. Very neat. Welcome back. Dr. Saad, how's it going? If you guys feel lazy, Sayyidah Fatima radiallahu anha, one time she came to the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam asking for a khadim. A khadim is someone to serve her in her house. Now Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he wasn't at home when she came to ask him this question. She wants someone to serve at home, but she didn't find Rasulullah. She found his wife, Sayyidah Aisha. And when Rasulullah came back home, Sayyidah Aisha told him that your daughter Fatima came and she was wondering if she can have a khadim, someone to serve. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went to his daughter's home. So he found Sayyidah Aisha sitting on her bed with her husband. Who is the husband? Sayyidina Ali. Then Rasulullah sat down right in the middle. This was the connection between Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu and his father-in-law. I mean, this doesn't happen in every single house today. If your father-in-law comes all the way to your bedroom and sits down right in the middle between you and your wife, Allah knows what's going to happen between you when he leaves. Especially if you're someone who appreciates privacy, like me, for example. I like to keep everything private. To some extent. Then Rasulullah said, I heard that you came to my house asking for a khadim, but I can tell you about something that is better for you than having a khadim, a servant. And this is what I'm telling you today. If you feel lazy and you want to have some strength and some energy to come to class and some motivation, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said what's better for you than having a servant is to say every day when you go to bed, Subhanallah 33 times, Alhamdulillah 33 times, Allahu Akbar 34 times. And then he said, فَذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ لَكِ مِنْ خَادِمٍ. That's going to be better for you than having a servant. The scholars, when they commented on this, they said this means it's going to give you energy throughout the next day. So if you want to have energy, connect yourself again to the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Of course, you need to have patience to do what you need to do, to come to class even if you don't feel like coming, because it's cold outside, because you feel lazy, because you had a long day at school, because of any reason today there's no school anyways, it's Saturday, there's no school. So alhamdulillah, the class is on Saturday, right? But if you feel tired, and for example, you go to work in the weekends, for example, you have a lot of studying to do, or homework, or whatever, still say these adhkar before you sleep, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you some energy, inshaAllah, next day when you come to the class, inshaAllah. The hadith tonight is another foundation. Last time we talked about one of the foundations of our what? Tazkiyah. And that was the topic of what? Do you remember what we talked about last time? Istiqamah. Istiqamah, to remain steadfast. That was spirituality, that was tazkiyah. Today we're going to talk about the basics of our ibadah. In hadith number 22, عن أبي عبد الله جابر ابن عبد الله الأنصاري رضي الله عنهما أن رجلا, and his name is not mentioned here, just a رجل, a man, came to the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا رسول الله أرأيت إن صليت المكتوبات وصمت رمضان وأحللت الحلال وحرمت الحرام ولم أزد على ذلك شيئا أدخل الجنة؟ قال نعم. رواه الإمام مسلم. So basically, in this hadith, a man came to ask the Prophet ﷺ about how to survive. That's what every one of us here needs to focus on every single day when you wake up in the morning. What can I do in this life to be able to survive and make it to Jannah? This man only mentioned 4 pillars, 4 principles of survival. Salvation in the Akhirah. And Rasulullah said, if you only do these 4 things, you're going to make it to Jannah. What are these 4 things? Let's listen to the hadith first in English, and then we're going to explain that. But go slowly around, if you don't mind. Yeah.
Abu Abdullah Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari radiyallahu anhu said, a man questioned the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, do you think that if I perform the obligatory salah, fast in Ramadan, treat as lawful that which is halal, treat as forbidden that which is haram, and do not do more than that, shall I enter paradise? He replied, yes. Reported by Muslim.
Barakallahu feek. So basically he mentions only what? How many pillars of Islam did he mention here? 2 pillars of Islam. How many pillars do we have in Islam? 5. But in this hadith it says if you do these 2 pillars, you're going to make it to Jannah. How can you understand this? Why do you think Rasulullah did not say to him, no, you still have to go to Hajj, you still have to pay zakah, and you still have to say the Shahada? Why do you think he did not tell him that? Think about it. Let's think together. So this man here said, Ya Rasulullah, I have 4 things I want to do. And what do you think? If I do them, can I make it to Jannah? Number 1 is to pray 5 times. Number 2 is to fast Ramadan. Treat what is halal as halal and what is haram as haram. Just 4 things. Stay away from the haram and do the obligations. And pray 5 times and fast Ramadan. He never spoke about Hajj or Zakat. And then he asked Rasulullah, if I did these 4 things, am I going to make it to Jannah? And the Rasul said, yes, you're going to make it to Jannah. Why do you think Rasulullah never mentioned the other 2 or 3 pillars of Islam?
From what I'm understanding, because it's already automatically included in it. When you say leave the haram and do the halal, it's haram to leave the obligation, it's haram to leave the shahada, it's haram to not give zakah if you can give it, it's haram to not do to do hajj if you can and you have the option and you don't do it.
That's a great answer. Actually, that's not what the Sheikh mentions. Actually, Sheikh al-Uthaymeen, he did not mention this, but that's a great analysis. Ahmed.
Not everybody has to do the Hajj or pay the zakat.
That's even better analysis. And that's why, because for the prayer, there is no excuse. Apparently, this man, because he came to the Prophet to ask this question, this means, he said, Ya Rasulullah, this is an indication that he believes in Allah and His Messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the Shahada is already done. He doesn't have to do the Shahada. He doesn't have to speak about it. And then he asked about Salah and Siyam. But he did not mention the Hajj and Zakah because perhaps Rasulullah thought he does not have enough money. He is one of the poor Muslims who doesn't have to pay Zakah anyways. The only pillar of Islam that has no excuse is Salah. The only pillar in Islam. Every other pillar has excuses. If you're, if you're sick, you don't have to fast. If you're traveling, you don't have to fast. If you're poor, you don't have to pay Zakah. If you cannot go to Hajj physically or financially, you don't have to go to Hajj. But for Salah, you have to do Salah, and then he even added here Siyam as well. And what Harris said was great as well, that he said, and treat what is halal, what is lawful as lawful, and what is unlawful as unlawful. So this is the first point that I wanted to mention. There are some other narration in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, or the person who asked, he actually added zakah in another narration. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, when this man came, said, Ya Rasulullah, ما علي من الصلاة? How many prayers do you have to pray? فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, خمس. Just 5 prayers. ما علي من الصيام? Just for Ramadan. ما علي من الزكاة? What do I have to do for zakah? And Rasulullah explains how to pay zakah. The man left Rasulullah, and when he was walking away, he said, والله لا أزيد على هذا ولا أنقص. I swear to Allah, I will not add anything to what you just mentioned. I'm not going to add anything. Which means I'm not going to pray sunan. And that leads us to another point that we're going to discuss inshallah now about the ruling of witr. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said 5 prayers, but in the Hanafi madhab, Sayyidina Abu Hanifa radiallahu anhu, he said al-witr is not a sunnah, al-witr is wajib. We're going to come to this point now inshallah. And one time Rasulullah climbed the minbar in a hadith narrated by Imam Ahmad and said, أيها الناس, O people, اتقوا ربكم, be conscious of Allah, of your master. وصلوا خمسكم, and pray 5 times a day. وصوموا شهركم, and fast your month, meaning the month of Ramadan. وأدوا زكاة أموالكم, and pay your obligatory zakah. وأطيعوا, he added another element here, صلى الله عليه وسلم. وأطيعوا ذات أمركم. ذا أمركم, أولو الأمر, people of authority amongst us are scholars and rulers. Allah said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا أطيعوا الله وأطيعوا الرسول وأولي الأمر منكم. Obey Allah and obey His Messenger, but He did not say وأطيعوا أولي الأمر منكم. Again, did you notice this? Allah said, obey 3 people, or 3, not people. Allah is not people, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Obey 3. Allah, His Messenger, and people of authority. When He spoke about Allah, He said, أطيعوا Allah, obey Allah. Independently, obey Allah. And when He spoke about His Prophet, He said, and obey وأطيعوا الرسول, independently. But when He spoke about ulul amr, people who have authority, He did not say وأطيعوا ulul amr. Why? Because when you follow scholars, when you follow people in authority, you have to ask them and verify what they're saying is in agreement of what Allah has said and His Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now you can follow, otherwise you don't have to follow them. If I tell you something and I don't tell you which madhab it is, on what the evidence of what I'm saying is, you don't have to follow it. If anybody tells you anything and he doesn't tell you the evidence, you don't have to follow it. And the evidence doesn't have to be Quran or Sunnah. It can be some other foundations of Islamic law, as we mentioned before. There's analogy, there is sayings of the Sahaba, there is Arabic language. Just ask me about the evidence, I will give you the evidence. If I don't give you evidence, you don't have to follow me. If I don't give you the madhab, you don't have to follow me. Or any other shaykh. No.
Is this talking about scholars specifically or anybody with any responsibility?
Anyone with authority. But basically here, it's talking ulil amr are the scholars and rulers.
Okay, so even for the rulers, if they don't provide evidence.
And that applies to everybody else. Like what? Like who? Like who? It applies to others, but like who? Tell me some. Like, what are we talking about?
I don't know. Water is haram.
What is, no, like who else is an authority?
Oh, okay.
Other than the scholars and rulers? Husband?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, the wife doesn't have to obey the husband if he tells her to do something haram. You know, your parents, I mean, if they ask you to disobey Allah, obey them except in disobeying Allah, right? So they still have to follow Allah and His Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But of course, it depends on what are you capable of. Okay, now our rulers are asking us to do something haram. What am I supposed to do? Go beat him up. Okay, go to jail. No, there's a way to change what's wrong. There's a way to change it. With your hands. If you can't, with your tongue. If you can't, with your heart. As Rasulullah said, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So here Rasulullah added that being conscious of Allah, prayer, fasting, zakah, and obeying the people who are in authority, and this hadith is narrated by Imam Ahmad. So if you combine these three narrations, how many pillars of Islam that we need right now to make it to Jannah? Number 1 is 5 prayers, 2 is fast Ramadan, 3 is zakah, 4 is obeying those who are in authority. And what about Hajj? Not everybody has to go to Hajj. It's not mentioned here. So these are the pillars of survival. If you want survival. So if you make these 4 things, you pray 5 times, you fast Ramadan, you give your zakah, you obey people of authority, is there anything that can stop you from going to Jannah? Anything can stop you from going to Jannah after you've done these 4 things, 4 elements? The answer is yes. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, لا يدخل الجنة قاطع رحم. If you don't keep the ties of your kinship, you're not going to make it to Jannah. And he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يدخل الجنة عاق لوالديه. Do all the pillars of Islam, but don't obey your parents, you're not going to make it to Jannah. And then he said sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, لا يدخل الجنة نمام. People who gossip and backbite other people. Gossiping. Gossip is actually one of the main reasons for you to not go to Jannah. And then he said, من كان في قلبه مثقال ذرة من كبر. People who have even an atom's weight of arrogance in their hearts. They feel. They don't have to say it, but they feel they are better than other people. Incredibly dangerous point. I mention this all the time. Self-righteousness. I see myself, because I climb the member, I see myself better than all of you. If I feel like this right now, and you don't know what's in my heart, may Allah give us sincerity, Allahumma ameen. May Allah remove arrogance from our hearts. If I feel I'm better than you, because I climb the member, I'm not going to make it to Jannah. I heard some Huffaz before, and I pick on them because I love them. I pick on them because I love them, and I support them. The Huffaz. I heard all the Huffaz was saying, I memorized the Quran because I saw the Imam leading Taraweeh and I wanted to be with like this guy. I wanted to stand up over there. I know he's young and he's a child and he doesn't know what he's saying. But if he's my age and he's responsible, and then he says, I just wanted to be a hafiz because I wanted to lead Taraweeh in Ramadan, that means he has arrogance in his heart, he's not going to make it to Jannah. Good? Do you know that some people only memorize Quran for this reason? And some parents only send their kids to help the school only for this reason? To go around and tell people, my son is a hafiz. I want my son to perform his sister's nikah because he's a hafiz. I want my son to lead Taraweeh in this masjid because he's a hafiz. You're not going to make it to Jannah because Rasulullah said that sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Unless you repent to Allah Azza wa Jalla. May Allah clean our hearts from arrogance. Allahumma ameen. Very, very dangerous. Arrogance can destroy your relationship with Allah Azza wa Jalla. طيب يا جماعة. طيب, and he said وَأَحْلَلْتُ الْحَلَالِ. Avoiding what is haram has two conditions. Please write this down, it's important. Avoiding what is haram, because he said here, وَحَرَّمْتُ الْحَرَامِ. And I treat what is haram as haram. There are two conditions to avoid what is haram. To treat it as haram. How to treat what haram as haram? Number one is to avoid it. Number two is to believe it is haram. It might sound like, what are you talking? It's common sense. No, it's not. There was an interview by, Mo Salah. I know guys don't like him. You like Ronaldo and Messi, right? I like Ronaldo even more. But Mo Salah, he was an interview one time. An interviewer was asking him. He told him, do you go with your teammates, do you go with them to drink alcohol when they celebrate Christmas, for example? Do you go with them to drink alcohol? He said no. The interviewer told him why. Do you know his answer? Have you heard his answer? He said, because I don't like it. I don't feel like I want to have alcohol. The entire Egyptian country, all of us Egyptians, we were just, what is that? What is he saying? No, you don't go to parties and you don't go drink alcohol because you think it is haram. Your name is Muhammad, by the way. Your name is not Mo. Your name is Muhammad, Salah. And you're a Muslim Egyptian. So you need to believe it is haram. If somebody tells you, why don't you eat pork? Don't tell him because I don't like pork. No, because I believe it is haram. And because Mo Salah is an example for many youth, I don't know why. They take him as an example. In soccer, yes. In soccer, yes, he is an example for everybody. But not in every other aspect of this life, right? So for him to be an example for our youth, and he says, I don't drink alcohol just because I don't like it, that's a problem in his Islam. Not saying he's a Muslim, I can't say that. But that's a problem perhaps he doesn't understand. So I avoid what is haram. That's the meaning of haramtul haram. Haramtul haram. Avoid it, and I believe because it's haram. Why don't you eat pork? Because it's unhealthy. Right? Why do you fast? Because I want to lose weight. Why do you pray? Because I don't have to do yoga if I pray. If you do all these things, why do you go to Hajj? It's because everybody has to go to Hajj. No, you have to believe these things are obligations or prohibitions according to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. Okay. What else? Other points. The next point I wanted to say, guys, is how the Sahaba used to care very much about the basics first. Basics first. This is actually maybe since I came back from Egypt, this is like 4th time I'm talking about people who try to jump instead of taking the stairs. Do you want to eat biryani without killing the animal first? Right? As Sayyidina Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said about them. So everything has to go gradually. Start with the basics first. Guys, I have a strategy to change things in the community. If I want to change something in the community, I challenge people. Like, for example, I will tell you some secrets. In the past, this masjid didn't used to be clean. I criticized that on the minbar. Now we have very regular people who come to clean the masjid every day. maybe now it's not freezing because yesterday we had kids playing here. That the masjid is, mashallah, clean the entire week because I challenged people. So I'm challenging you that you're not gonna come to Fajr. Because you don't think Fajr is glorifying, you don't think it's interesting, and you will never come to Fajr. You should now look at my eyes and come to Fajr tomorrow. I'm trying to challenge you here. Challenge yourself. Look for the basics first. Go for the basics first. The second point here is that how the Sahaba used to aim for the highest levels in Jannah, not just making it to Jannah. Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b radiallahu anhu, he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and was making wudu. And then he was pouring the water and Rasulullah making wudu. Then Sayyidina Ubay ibn Ka'b said, I want to ask you a question. Rasulullah said, ask whatever you want, Ya Ubay. Sayyidina Ubay said, Ya Rasulullah, أسألك مرافقتك في الجنة. I want to be just like next to you in Jannah, just with you, next to you in Jannah. I mean, that's a huge request. Like, how are you going to make it to Jannah next to the Prophet in the same level? How are you going to make it to Jannah? I mean, you can just survive and be allowed to Jannah, but be right next to the Prophet in the highest position. And then Rasulullah told him, أَوَ غَيْرَ ذَلِكَ? Don't you have another question? I mean, another request? That's so big. I can guarantee that I can do it for you. Huh? فَقَالَ هُوَ ذَاكَ. That's the only one. If it's hard, that's one I want. You know what Rasulullah told him? He said, فَأَعِنْ عَلَى نَفْسِكَ بِكَثْرَةِ السُّجُودِ. He said, pray and do sujood as much as you can, and you will be with me in Jannah. The sujood means pray as much as you can, not protest as much as you can. Talk, give lectures like I do every week as much as you can. No, pray qiyamul layl as much as you can. Pray Isha and the sunnah of Isha when you go home. That's the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As much as you can. Do as much sujood as you can. And witr, the ruling of witr. What is the ruling of witr, guys? Because we sit here, Rasulullah said khams salawat. The ruling of witr in the Hanafi, it's wajib. What is the difference between wajib and fard? The wajib is that we have fard, and then we have wajib, and then we have sunnatul mu'akkada, highly recommended. You can write this down. Fard is the highest level, and wajib and fard are the same in all schools of thought, except Hanafiya. Sayyidina Abu Hanif, he said wajib is below the fard, because fard, it became obligatory because of a dalil that the qat'i al-thubut. Qat'i al-thubut means it's 100% authentic. 5 daily prayers. And that's why Sayyidina Abu Hanif said, it's 100% authentic, and it has one meaning that 5 daily prayers are obligatory, so that's a fard. But witr is obligatory because it's highly, highly, highly recommended, but it's not 100%. The evidence is not 100% authentic. It's like 90% authentic. So it's wajib for Sayyidina Abu Hanif. But for the rest of the scholars, it's sunnatul mu'akkada, highly recommended. خلاص? Sayyidina Abu Hanifa prays witr just like Maghrib prayer. Just like Maghrib. 2 rak'at, tashahhud, 1 rak'ah, and tashahhud and taslim. Sayyidina Shafi'i and Malik, they pray 2 rak'at, shafa' and then salam, then 1 rak'ah, witr and then salam. Sayyidina Ahmad ibn Hanbal prays it 3 rak'at with 1 taslim and 1 tashahhud. Not like Maghrib. 1 taslim and 1 tashahhud. But you still can pray in Hanbali madhab with 2 tashahhuds, like Maghrib. Even Hanbaliya agreed with Sayyidina Abu Hanifah on this. How many rak'at for witr you can pray in Hanbali? What is the maximum?
What do you want?
The maximum of witr, 11. With one salam. How can you do it? Just think about it. You can pray 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 for only witr. With one taslim, one salam, assalamu alaikum, right and left. How can you do it?
You do 5 twos and then 1.
5 twos. So how many tashahhuds?
6
6 tashahhud.
2 tashahhuds only. If you want to pray 11, you pray 10 rak'at and then 1 tashahhud. And then single out the witr by itself or 1 rak'ah by itself and another tashahhud after that one. So you keep going up and down, up and down, up and down. Like 10 times. 10 times. 10 rak'ahs. And then do the tashahhud and then get up for 1 more rak'ah and then do the other tashahhud. That's the Hanbali madhab in case you want to do it. Do not do it next Ramadan. Do that. You're going to create issues like maybe. No.
Isn't there a hadith about not praying witr as Maghrib?
Yes, there is. But what I'm telling you right now is the madhab. There's a difference between telling you what the madhab say and between telling you what's the strongest opinion. Sayyidina Abu Hanifa, the hadith that he used is in Mustadrak al-Hakim. Mustadrak al-Hakim is the book that, Imam Abu al-Bukhari, when he combined his book of hadith, collection of hadith, now.
Should we follow a specific madhab? Like, should we just stick to only one? Or
No, of course not. Of course not. It's up to you. I mean, for me, I do something called talfiq. What is talfiq? Have I told you this before? Okay, write this down and go look it up. Huh? I told you? What is talfiq? Talfiq, you must like it. It's to pick and choose. That's talfiq. Talfiq is to choose the opinion that fits your situation from whichever madhab. Is that allowed? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It is allowed. Who told you it's not allowed? We have one Islam, different understandings of this Islam. So in this situation, I'm going to take the understanding of Sayyidina Abu Hanifa because it fits my situation. And then the understanding of Sayyidina Malik in another situation. And then in Zakah, I will follow Sayyidina Shafi'i because it fits my situation. People, to make you hate it, they call it fatwa shopping. It's not fatwa shopping. It's not fatwa shopping. You're not going to make me hate it. It has a term. It's called talfiq. In our tradition, it's called talfiq. Right, talfiq in Google and read about it. No.
Would this only apply? Could anybody do talfiq?
It only applies, exactly. It only applies to maybe advanced students of knowledge and scholars and mujtahidun, not to beginners.
People who know.
Awam al-Muslimin, madhabuhu, here is the qa'idah. The general Muslims, your madhab, madhabu man yuftih. Your madhab is the madhab of the sheikh who gives you the fatwa. You come to me or to any other sheikh and you ask him a question. You just ask me a question on phone, right? Anybody can ask me a question. Do you have to tell me what madhab you follow? If you ask me, I'm not going to tell you. If you don't trust me enough, don't come to me. If you don't trust that sheikh enough and you know that he's qualified, don't go to him. So the qa'idah is this. That's the qa'idah. Could write this down. That's important. Al-'ammi, the general people, madhabuhu, madhab man yuftih. His madhab is the madhab of the scholar who gave him the fatwa. Or of his mufti. My madhab is the madhab of my mufti. What is his madhab? I don't know. And it can be any madhab. But I know he's qualified. And there's a mufti. I go ask him, I take his fatwa, and I walk away. I don't keep analyzing. Because I don't understand anyways. If he tells you, you're going to be confused. And that's normal. That's in any field. It's just like that in any field. No.
So we could only do talfiq if we know the evidences? Is that okay? Like if you know the evidences.
For you, the Ammi?
No. Like if
you know the Ammi then, you're a student of knowledge.
Okay.
You know, you can do tafsir if you're a student of knowledge and you have all the evidence and you know there are certain masail يعني. Because it's like you're going to an engineer and he wants to design your house this way. Another engineer, another different way. You're not going to tell him which school did you graduate from. You're not going to tell him that. That's exactly what you do to sheikhs. When you go to them and what madhab do you follow? What do you mean? Don't ask me. Please go home. You came and asked me, this means you trust me. I'm your engineer, I'm your lawyer. You trust me, I'm going to give you my knowledge. You don't want it, khas? Walk away. I didn't ask you to come here. Great. So, anything else I want to say here? Okay. It's important to make sure that we do not prohibit what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made lawful azza wa jal. There's a hadith narrated by Imam al-Tirmidhi and Adi ibn Hatim radiallahu anhu. He was a Christian and then he became a Muslim. When he became a Muslim, he heard the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam reciting this verse, اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. He said, people of the scripture, some of them, they took their monks and righteous people, you know, as gods beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then Ali ibn Hatim said, Ya Rasulullah, we never worshipped them. I was a Christian, we never used to worship our leaders. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, you worship towards them is that they made the unlawful lawful and the lawful unlawful and you followed them. So basically when you make the haram halal, you're putting yourself in the position of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whoever follows you, this means he is taking you as a god. That's what the ayah says. اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا. Very dangerous, subhanAllah. خلاص? What else? Okay guys. Do we have any questions today? Maybe last question here. Last question about the obligation of Hajj. The obligation of Hajj. Because now we're talking about the basics. A question came to me recently. A young man, he has a part-time job and he has some money. With this money that he has, he can take some training or he can go to Hajj. Or if he wants to get married, he doesn't want to get married now. But also there's another option, if he wants to get married, he can get married. So what do you think he's supposed to do? Let's say you have money to go to Hajj, but with this money you want to take some training, or you want to finish your education, or you want to get married. Which one do you have to do first? We're now talking about fiqh. Here, I'm just going to go to this question. So money for Hajj. But you want to take some training or you want to get married. So if you think you want to go to Hajj, you have to go to Hajj, raise your hand. If you have to go to Hajj first, raise your hand. I just want to see what's in your minds. You just have to go to Hajj immediately, right? So if you think you don't have to go to Hajj, you can get married first or get your training and then go Hajj later, just raise your hands. Thank you so much, alhamdulillah. Why? Because al-Hajj, is it wajib ala al-thawr or ala al-tarahi? That's the one question I'm going to answer. Al-thawr means, is Hajj obligatory immediately once you have the means to it? Or you can take your time. Tarahi means you can take your time. The answer is, of course, it's not obligatory immediately. Because when did Rasulullah do Hajj? Huh?
61? Is it the age of 61?
It's before he died. Right before he died, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the best option for you is to make sure you ask the angel of death, what time I'm going to die? And then you go to Hajj right before you die. That's what Rasulullah said. I'm happy I made you laugh, but the point is, you can delay Hajj until you think, it's time now, I'm too old, I want to go to Hajj right now. But again, a lot of people say it's better for you to go to Hajj when you're young, and you can, because you don't know what's going to happen to your money or your health. Because if you get even weak, physically, you're going to really struggle a lot to go to Hajj. But the Islamic ruling is you can delay if you want. It's not haram. We'll stop here inshallah. Any questions? Huh?
If you go to Hajj on someone else's expense, does that count as your Hajj, or do you have to go on?
Of course, you're going to be rewarded the same. But you need to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this Hajj is for that person on his behalf. And Allah is going to reward him, and of course reward you because he did the action as well.
So you fulfill your obligation of going to Hajj then?
Oh, no.
No? So it has to be.
It's going to be a voluntary Hajj for you. But you have to do your own Hajj, the obligatory Hajj for yourself first. And then you can do it. You have to, it's a must. You have to do it for yourself first. You've done it, then now you can do it for someone else. And it's going to be sunnah for you and wajib for him. Or fard for him.
And so, say I have a family or a wife or something, and she goes on my expense.
She goes with your money to do Hajj for you. Why would she? I mean, that's if somebody is unable to go. Like if you're unable to go, oh, you mean you pay for her Hajj?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, of course you will get the same reward. But it doesn't mean that you don't do Hajj yourself. You have to go do actual Hajj for yourself. I heard something very interesting recently. They are trying to organize a virtual Hajj. You've heard about that? That's beautiful. Wow, you can do it from home. I mean, what is that? It's crazy. Seriously, I'm gonna kiss that. Like, I need to see the shaitan.
I think Saad was asking, like a husband pays for his wife,
Yeah.
not the wife, because the husband's
He
paying.
doesn't have to pay for his wife.
He doesn't have to.
No, of course not. The husband doesn't have to pay for his wife's Hajj. He doesn't have to. This is Islamic ruling.
He's thinking like,
But is he supposed to do? Yeah, he's supposed to pay for her, but he doesn't have to. It's not an obligation.
but
The father doesn't have to pay for his daughter's marriage. Because the husband has to prepare everything. Why would she pay anything? You want to marry someone, you take her as she is. You know, you wear whatever she is wearing, just take her home and that's it. You pay for everything, aren't you? No? Her father doesn't pay anything.
isn't the husband the caretaker and the protector of the woman? And she does, let's say she can't, she's not doing a job. She
Okay.
says she doesn't have the money. The baba is not, you know?
She doesn't have the money, she doesn't have to go to Hajj.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, like, Sheikh, what Saad like trying to say is, for example,
So the wife doesn't have the money, she doesn't have to go to Hajj.
No.
And the husband doesn't have to pay for her.
like,
That's not, you know, it's ethical. I mean,
it's not about husband and wife. Like what Saad
Husband and wife.
what trying to ask is actually, for example, let's say if I'm a rich person, and then one of the poor Muslim come to me and then ask me like, you know, if you give me some money, I can go to Hajj. If I give some money to the poor person, and if the poor person goes to Hajj, it belongs to his Hajj, like the Hajj belongs to me. That's what Saad is asking.
I'm just saying, has he fulfilled the obligation of Hajj? Like,
Of
I
course.
Yeah, that's
He fulfilled the obligation, even if you give, because you give him the money, it became his. Khalas, that's his money now.
That's
It's
what he
given to him.
asked actually.
Now he's going to Hajj. Because he's not going to walk on the street and put your name on the money. Until he decided to give you money. Like, he gave him the money, Khalid, from you, he took it. It became his already. Now, yeah. Just near after, inshallah. Now.
Yeah, with the hadith about that, the original one that we started with, that you do the salat, does that come with the condition of doing the salat perfectly with khushu' and all of those things? And then if your khushu', for example, diminishes like 1/5, 1/10 is the hadith, does that mean that you now have to do sunnah, or does that, how does that work?
Exactly. You have to differentiate between two words. I have mentioned this before. There's two words. One word is called al-jaza, and one word is called al-ijza. Al-ijza means what? If you pray, Allah is going to accept from you. You came to pray Isha today, Allah will accept. Khalas. Which means you don't have to pray Isha again, you're good. But perhaps Haris had more khushu' than me. So I'm going to take like 60%, he's going to take like 90%. But we both did Isha. Right, so that's Ijaza and Ijaza. Ijaza means there's no replacement. You don't have to replace it. It's done already. It's like you finished your degree, but you got like 60%, but you passed. You know? But someone else got like 1995. So he also passed. So you don't have to repeat it, right? You already graduated, same thing. You graduated, but your reward is not the same. It's all about reward, not about the Ijaza. No. And jaza means hasanat. Jaza means reward. Jaza means replacement. You don't have to replace it. Yeah.
If someone has passed away, could you do like a hajj on their behalf?
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. If somebody passes away, I can do Hajj in his behalf, but I have to have done it to myself first. I have to have done it for myself first. And then I go on somebody else's behalf.
And then their obligation will be removed. The ones passed away.
Yeah, of course. Nabi said, Sadaq, you can even make up his siyam, can pay his zakah, can pay his debts. And Said Sadaq mentioned a hadith in Fiqh Sunnah that you can even pray, make up his prayers. That's a weak opinion. But some scholars said, when you go to make Hajj, what do you do basically in Hajj? You pray in Hajj 2 rak'at next to the maqam of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. So that's a prayer included in Hajj. Guys, you understand what I'm saying? That's an important point. Can I pray and make up somebody's prayer? The answer is yes. And the reason for this is what? When you go make Hajj on his behalf, which agreed upon, you pray during your Hajj behind the maqam of Prophet Ibrahim. So prayer is included in the Hajj that you can make up for someone. So you still can make up his prayers. Again, that's not agreed on, but that's the opinion that Imam Sayyid Sabiq mentioned in his Fiqh Sunnah. Now,
can you repeat what you were saying about Hanafi's opinion about Fard and Wajib?
yeah, and Hanafiya, Fard for them is when you have an evidence that's a qat'i al-thubut, 100% authentic, qat'i al-dalala. As we mentioned before, qat'i al-dalala means it has one meaning, like the 5 daily prayers. But al-wajib, the evidence is dhanni al-thubut, maybe 90% authentic, 80% authentic. Dhanni al-dalala. Dhanni al-dalala means there is no obligation that you have to establish witr. Like aqimu salah, there is no establishment of witr. Wa aqimu witr. Let not say aqimu witr. But there is a lot of encouragement in the sunnah of the Prophet to pray witr. So when he encourages me like that, does this mean it's an obligation or not? So that's a dhanni. I'm not sure. Two different opinions. That's what Hanafi mean when they say the evidence is dhanni dalala. The meaning is not agreed on. Different opinions on the meaning or the authenticity of the evidence.
So some do say witr is fard? Like there's a dhanni?
Yeah.
Some do say
It's wajib. Nobody said fard.
Okay. Okay, so that's qati.
No one said fard.
Is Hajj the only?
It's sunnatu mu'akkada. Huh?
Is Hajj the only thing that's fard and you can delay it?
Yeah. Hajj and zakah. You can also delay zakah. Yeah. And you can delay prayer until the next prayer time. But you cannot pray and delay fasting, and you cannot delay shahada. We'll take shahada later. What's next? Okay, are we done here? Any other questions? You know what? Something I want just to conclude with this about you Muslims and delaying your shahada and what. We were thinking to have a talk, support the animal right. And you know how the Muslim community will look at this, right? We're just thinking about it, and I told you the Maliki madhab on this, and this fight we've talked about before. And we're thinking, me and my wife, about this. What if the Muslim community finds out that you have a dog at home? You would really have some people telling you, I'm going to pray behind you. And then I told my wife that, because the majority of Muslims don't like dogs. They follow the rest of the schools of thought, not Imam Malik, right? They think it's najis. No. She said to me, she went online and she found that a new Muslim had a dog. And people in the Muslim community told him or her, you have to go back and then come again, take your shahada when you give up your dog. It's like because you have a dog, you're not a Muslim yet. Your shahada is not valid. This is how the Muslim community thinks today. جزاك الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته